All right, let's dive into something really cool today, Mexican Spanish. You've given us a ton on it, way more than just the basics. So I'm really ready to figure out what gives this dialect its own special something, beyond just being Spanish.
Oh, you're in for a treat. I mean, it's true. More than 99% of Mexicans speak Spanish, biggest Spanish-speaking population anywhere.
Right.
Right. But to just call it Spanish is, well, kind of like saying a rainforest is just trees. There's got to be more to it.
Okay, now you've got me curious. What makes it so diverse then?
Think of it like this amazing tapestry, woven from all these different dialects, different ways people speak it, each with its own history, its own flavor. Like someone from Chiapas, down south in Mexico. They might sound kind of Central American to you.
No kidding. How come?
Migration, mostly. Chiapas is right next to Guatemala, lots of back and forth over time, people, trade, the whole bit. And language, it's alive. It picks up on that stuff, like a linguistic fingerprint, showing those connections.
So even within Mexico, you've got these regional accents, dialects. It's like each area has its own Spanish story going on.
Exactly. And it's not just where you are, but also like what social circles you're in. Spanish in a huge city, Guadalajara, let's say, will be different from how they speak it in a small village in Oaxaca. Totally different vibes.
Makes sense. And I bet all the migration to the U.S. plays a part too, right?
Huge part. You've got this massive Mexican diaspora up there. So Mexican Spanish, it's super influential in the U.S., most spoken variety, shaping how cities sound, the whole 9 yards.
Like this constant flow back and forth across the border, each trip leaving something behind in the language.
You got it. Now, ready to go deeper.
Yeah.
You mentioned the sound of Mexican Spanish earlier. There's something, well, musical to it, don't you think?
Totally. I've always felt that, but I could never put my finger on why exactly.
One thing is how they pronounce things. Mexican Spanish, it's got these strong, crisp consonants, but the vowels are kind of relaxed. And get this, some linguists think it might be because of, get this, the Nahuatl language.
Hold up, seriously. The Aztec language is in Mexican Spanish. Tell me more. You gotta.
You bet. It's like this echo of the past right there in how people speak. Like Tlapaleria means hardware store. That TL sound at the beginning, pure Nahuatl. And they say it as one sound, not how they do in like standard Spanish.
Wow, I never even noticed. So it's not just the words, but how they flow together, the whole rhythm of it.
You're getting it. This blend of sounds, that's the Mexican Spanish soundtrack. Though I should say, even that TL sound, linguists debate it.
Oh. Well, language mystery. I'm all ears.
Yeah, so some say it's actually two sounds, really fast, not just one. But either way, it's definitely Mexican Spanish. Shows how those old languages are still there.
It's like, wow, a little history lesson every time you talk to someone.
Exactly. And you know what else is unique? It's kind of charming, actually, how Mexican Spanish uses diminutives all the time.
You mean like adding ita to words? Yeah, I always thought that was cute.
That's it. But Mexicans, they really go for it. Not just about making something small. It's adding like warmth, affection, even being playful.
So it's not just grammar, it's the feeling you get across too.
Yeah, exactly. A huge house. They'll still call it casita, not because it's tiny, but makes it sound more welcoming. Or ahorita, technically right now, but often it's more like soonish, relaxed.
Oh, ahorita. Yeah, it got me confused a few times when I was learning like a secret code for how Mexicans do time.
You could say that. It's all about being polite, not too direct, which is big in Mexican culture. And some linguists even think this love for diminutives. Maybe Nahuatl made it even stronger because they use them a lot too.
Wow, so it's like these layers of language, one on top of the other. Makes you wonder what other Nahuatl words are hiding in plain sight in Mexican Spanish.
Oh, tons. Everyday things, even food. Chocolate, for one. That word, it came from Nahuatl. Imagine that. Proof of how old that treat is.
It's kind of wild, these words traveling through time, carrying all that history with them. Got any favorites?
I kind of like guajolote. It means turkey. Other Spanish speakers, they might say pavo, but in Mexico. Both work. Shows you how much variety there is, even within Spanish itself.
Yeah, like each word's got its own little story, right? About cultures mixing, adapting, all that.
Beautifully put. And these stories, they don't stop with just Nahuatl. Mexican Spanish, it's alive, keeps changing, especially with English being right there.
Ah, right. The elefante in the room, as they say. Big influence, but is it bad? Or just how languages change naturally.
Now that's a question that gets people going. Linguists, anyone who cares about language, they all debate it. What we do know is English is in Mexican Spanish now, from single words to how sentences are built, the whole shebang.
That's what I find so cool, is like this invisible force changing how people actually speak. Any examples of that grammar stuff?
So, like, younger Mexicans, they don't always say estoy de acuerdo, which is I agree, right? They're starting to use estoy con, like saying I'm with in English. Same idea, different way of saying it.
Wow, that's subtle. You'd never notice unless you were, like, really listening closely. Is this what people call Spanglish then?
Ah, Spanglish is its own thing, its own kind of language almost, got its own rules and everything.
Yeah.
This is more, well, English words, phrases, getting comfy in Mexican Spanish, like checar for to check, or lonchera, meaning lunch bag. People say them so much you forget they're even English anymore.
Like they've become, well, just another part of Spanish. It's kind of how English took words from tons of other languages, right?
Exactly. Languages borrow from each other all the time. That's just how they grow.
Hmm.
And when they're close together geographically, well, that's when it gets really noticeable. The U.S.-Mexico border is like the perfect example.
So closer to the border, more English mixing in with the Spanish.
You got it. And it's not just about where, but who. Younger folks, especially if they grow up in those border towns, speaking both, they mix English in more. Shows you how globalization, cultures blending, it's happening in language right now.
It really makes you realize language is never just like done. It's always changing, especially now with the whole world so connected. So what does that mean for the future of Mexican Spanish? Will it become even more its own thing, or will this back and forth with English end up making something totally new?
$1 million question, right? And honestly, anything complicated about language, there's no easy answer. What I can say is Mexican Spanish, with its indigenous roots, the European influence, and now all this North American stuff,
Yeah.
it shows you language is powerful. It adapts, it changes, it reflects the world around it, always.
This has been amazing, honestly. I feel like I get Mexican Spanish on a whole new level now, all thanks to you.
Happy to do it. Linguistics is my jam, and having someone who's really into it, asking great questions, that's what I live for.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the fascinating world of Mexican Spanish. We've traveled through history, explored linguistic twists and turns, and uncovered the surprising connections between languages. We hope you've enjoyed this journey as much as we have, but remember, the world of language is vast and full of incredible discoveries waiting to be made. So keep those ears open, keep that curiosity alive, and most importantly, keep those ahua moments coming.